Told him I was gonna film the sun.
Hi, Misha here, and have a old as new, new as old AK, the WASR-10, so-called Paratrooper. These are back in stock. They have been on the market before, but they've also been gone for a minute, and a fresh batch just came in. These are manufactured in Romania by Cugir or Cugir or whoever you want to say, that's fine, and imported by Century Arms, who basically has the exclusive. Yeah, there's the M+M guns, but story for another day. This is a basic WASR 762 by 39 stamped receiver, 1.0 mil center top cover, and we have a 16-inch barrel, but we have a combination front sight gas block instead of two separate units. Relatively lightweight profile, slab side wood handguards, and the other element that makes it a paratrooper is the side folding wire poker stock. And from Century, this ships with one 30-round US palm mag, and it comes in a typical cardboard box. So we haven't done a WASR video in a minute. We're going to take this to the range, kind of compare it to some older guns, different guns, just have some fun with it, get out, relatively nice day, share it with some family members, kind of get their take and see what we think.
So here we have three Romanian guns, all WASRs, all very, very similar, but different. On the top, we have what was a standard WASR-10, relatively modern production, and it's in PM90 configuration.
WASR-10. No wire folders.
Next, we have my trusty WASR-10-63 KR. This is very much a beater gun for me. It was a U-Fix'em from Century, bought many years ago, probably a decade ago. And this is based on the PM90 short barrel rifle, or just short rifle. Essentially a Draco, but instead of a pistol without a stock and a 12-inch barrel, this is a rifle with a stock and rear trunnion. Still has a 12-inch barrel and a permanently attached muzzle brake to bring it to 16 inches.
WASR KR.
And of course, the actual subject of this video, the Paratrooper, that we've already mentioned in some. At first, it probably looks like the other two, and it really is. Using the same gas block. The key difference here, this has a full 16-inch barrel, much like our first rifle up here. But with the combo block, it gives it an interesting look, and the muzzle is threaded, and we have a birdcage flash hider. So this is another way to make a carbine out of the PM90 short rifle and get a little extra velocity and what have you. So with that, here we go.
WASR Paratrooper.
No surprise, first shots went swimmingly. Don't even need to degrease. It's a WASR. And they all pretty well shoot the same. Now the PM90 configuration here, all that really means is I put on the wire folding stock and kept the muzzle brake on. The original PM63 fixed stock had a muzzle nut, and the PM65, which was their folder, had an underfolding stock and usually had a muzzle nut as well. The PM90 series, which was a Cugir designation more than a Romanian military, was an attempt to update. Basically, they took the PA86, the 545 gun, gave it the new folding stock, which is a simplified version of the one made in East Germany and also built in Poland and Egypt, and put on a very common Russian style slant brake. Some you will find will have the dong forearm. I decided to go with the palm swell handguard. These are original Romanian, because a lot of the export PM90s had them, as well as several sold to the Romanian Navy. So with the PM90, we ended up with the PM90 short. Basically, they just took it down, and shorter gas system, combination front sight gas block unit, same rear, and a 12-inch, give or take, barrel. Romania's first effort at a short gun was actually the PM80, and it had a unique left side folding stock, which I've owned those before and stupidly never kept one. But kind of like an AMD 65, it had a special rear trunnion and the receiver had to be specially cut. With the PM90, these take a standard rear trunnion and have a right folding stock. Now with this we have a birdcage, but it's more of an M16A1 style. And of course with this we have a muzzle brake. Here is the proper muzzle device, flash hider. It is a bird cage, but it is slightly conical, tapering out. This is what was usually on PM90 short rifles, 7.62 by 39 at least, although some simply sported a muzzle nut, and some even had a slant muzzle brake. And while people often think of the PM90 short as having the dong, the wood foregrip, the majority didn't. And quite interestingly, they had these smooth, these slab side handguards. Kind of, you'd think they'd at least go palm swell. But I think they were trying to have something just easy to go by. So if you want to SBR, either of these would be an easy candidate. You'd have to cut the barrel down on this one, and you'd have to cut the muzzle device off on this one. It's threaded on here, and it does have a detent in the base. This one does not have the detent, but it has the hole for it. So if you cut it off, you could just install the detent and be good to go. Something else, the standard PM90, WASR-10, most AKMs have a rear sight out to 1,000 meters, and the Paratrooper actually continues that. But the PM90 short machine gun, along with this KR here, actually has a 500 meter reduced marked rear sight, and the notches are on the right side instead of the left on these two. Just thought I'd point out that small difference. Otherwise, they're on the same receivers, all that good stuff, what have you. And there's actually one more type that I don't have to show you, imported as the RH-10 by Century. It was originally the M10 through M+M, Colorado Gun Sales, and it was kind of a hybrid of everything. And then later there were the DIY kits, or DIY, where you could just put furniture on. And I do have a little shooting footage of one of those at least, even if I don't have the gun to show you today. M10. These are all good, dependable guns, although the cosmetics can vary quite wildly. The RH-10 and the M10, at least most of them, instead of having either of these rear sights, often have the windage adjustable RPK type rear sight. It's also worth pointing out that while the M10 RH-10 does have the combination block, it actually has the slightly longer gas tube and piston of the standard WASR-10, PM90, what have you. So we have this coming all the way out, and so this block is just a little bit further out on the barrel. And threads can be different depending on which one we're talking about. Technically this KR is a little shorter, only because this muzzle device, this flash hider, is removable on the Paratrooper, so that cannot count towards overall barrel length. It's also interesting there's a little bit of a step here in the barrel, which would be about where hardware would go. Little things like that. The RH-10, the M10, great guns too, but they're basically a standard WASR with a special rear sight and a combo device with standard gas system. It's just, Romania puts all this stuff together. And you can have different things appear on guns. You can have non-lightning cut, lightning cut carriers. You can have earlier machined parts, later cast parts. Although with newer production guns, since the older parts have run out for the most part, you'll probably find the newer production cast parts. And I don't mean like the bolt or the front trunnion. I mean things like the barrel hardware, and that's perfectly fine. Romania has been doing that since the 80s on their military guns, and Russia since the 70s, so perfectly mil-spec. I don't know what else to say as far as reliability. These things, they work, and they run. So, yeah. Without me having much more to say, why don't I hand it over to my cousin again, and he can give you some of his thoughts and opinions.
Hey everybody, Fox here. I'm going to talk about the WASR-10 Paratrooper. First initial impressions and how she ran. Well, it's an AK, and it's a classic looking AK, so it's a plus in my books. And you might see how accurate it is or isn't in the video. But nonetheless, comes with a standard US Palm mag, and it fits, seats just fine, no complaints there. Fit and finish, I mean, there's not much to it. I have no complaints. You may or may not see in the video while we're doing some range tests. If you like to pull the old underhanded AK side cock there, you gotta watch the safety lever there. It is a little sharp, but in time those things may wear themselves down, or maybe just handle it differently.
Now I like him give up.
Paratrooper. Yeah, and mag fitment, we did some Polish mags, did a couple of Zastava mags. Zastava mags were really tight in the beginning, and that's obviously normal for an AK, but they work, everything ran fine. I think we probably put 250, 300 rounds through this. Really enjoyable to shoot. Probably the only something that was noticeable, it wasn't an issue because clearly it can be fixed, but as I call them, the coat hanger here, just a little wobbly. There's a spot for an Allen head right there that you can tighten it, but on the first few times we were shooting it, when we had it shouldered here, if it gets to moving a lot with some rapid fire, it did kind of wobble itself into where it collapsed. But other than that, man, I think with a bigger grip, just my opinion, and probably a sight rail on it, I think she's going to be good to go.
Back to me, and just for fun I brought out my AS-10B. Kind of interesting to compare the lightest and the heaviest Romanian guns, at least outside the PSO. I also wanted to briefly talk about the stocks. I'm sure most of you know this, but just in case, to be thorough, they're all wire pokers, but these have the commercial style or export style where you press down the lever. The AS-10B has the Romanian military style with a push button down here, and the button is checkered. There are benefits and detractions each. This is more a style like what East Germany and Poland used, and this is pretty much Romanian through and through. Here's that RPK windage and elevation adjustable rear sight that, like I said, was on most RH-10s and M10s. And again, here's a dong foregrip if you're that one person in the world that hasn't seen one, because those definitely can appear on the PM90 shorts, and you could put one on either of these carbines if you so chose. Just keep in mind that it could make mag changes slightly more cumbersome. And finally, I'll put one of the Crink or PM90 style Romanian flash headers on my AS-10B a long time ago, frankly just because I think it looks cool and I had a spare one. why not? With that, why don't we do a little disassembly of these and kind of compare the guts. Disassembled and comparing gas systems. The bolt carriers are identical. We have the new Paratrooper on top, my old KR in the middle, and the old standard WASR-10 at the bottom. So the same bolt, the same carrier, aside from just manufacturing differences. For example, not having a lightning cut on this one. That has nothing to do with the models though. We have the top two with a short gas piston, at least compared to this one, which has a standard AKM length piston. Roughly an inch difference. And then moving to the gas tubes, these are again slightly shorter, not quite an inch compared to a standard one. However, what's nice about the Romanian pattern, it still uses standard top and bottom handguards. So even though the Paratrooper and the KR have special tubes, standard handguards. One other thing to point out, because these do have shorter pistons, that might make using a piston as a compliance part more problematic than it would with a standard length. Just, food for thought. Since they're apart already, we'll look inside, even though there's really nothing to see. Standard washer and standard AKM diameter barrel, and the KR here. Again, standard inside there until we get to the gas block combination, and then of course on this one the barrel ends where the extension begins. And on our newest one, again, nothing surprising. It's kind of a current century import. Which is fine. Mostly a good thing. And the gas tube fitment is actually quite tight, as was the latch here. So no loose tube or latch with this guy. This one's always kind of been an iffy gun, but that's why it's been always a good beater and shooter. And this is just an average WASR-10 that I hung on to a few years ago when they were around. Why not?
WASR-10 Paratrooper. AKs aren't accurate. Take one. On the finish here, I gotta be honest, I'm not a fan of this flat finish. It works only because I feel the wood looks a lot better. It's not that like bleached blonde look. It's more of a lighter, darker wood, if that makes sense. I think the camera can pick that up pretty good, but really and truly, I do not like this flat finish on the dust cover here. I kind of preferred the glossier look, even though it did scratch a little more. But yeah, there you go.
He was speaking to the finish. While the imports have always had kind of a phosphate finish with some parts being blued, like this one, this is an older style. The newer guns do have a, so it's a rougher, more coarse finish. Some love it, some hate it. Now my KR here, because it came in with such rotten finish, it's actually had a coat of paint put over it to give it a bit more gloss. So this is probably more his speed. just a good worn look, frankly. And you will find Romanian guns with yeah, a little bit of finish differences, either salt blued or different types of phosphating.
AKs aren't accurate. Take 2. How is it possible to shoot all the way around that?
Speaking to the stock, the one on the AS-10B Paratrooper here is very tight. It's got a little bit of wiggle, but not much. The KR up here is probably the tightest of the 3. And yeah, this Paratrooper has play. I never noticed it playing enough to do that, and actually, well, it does kind of stick down a bit, but it never folded up on me, but it is a little sticky. Probably something that just needs to be worked with. But it's nice to see these stocks appearing again, because for a while, Century wasn't putting them on any guns. With these KRs, you could either get them from Century the minute they were there with this style, or a more tactical style. And of course the RH-10s and some of the M10s, they had a more tactical look to them as well. And the Paratroopers and KRs were more of your traditional military-esque guns.
WASR-10.
So, if you're in the market, which to get? A standard WASR-10 or a WASR-10 Paratrooper? Again, from the receiver, they're the same. And the standard WASR-10 you can get with various furniture options, but most of them have a fixed stock. Whereas most Paratroopers, at least the ones right now, come with the folding stock. That's good if you want it, because sometimes on the aftermarket these stocks are not cheap. On the other hand, little wobble, and it's not the most comfortable. It's not terrible. Some people really kind of oversell how uncomfortable these wire pokers are, but a fixed stock will be more. But on the other hand, there's a certain factor of cool to this, and it does let you save a good bit of length. Moving forward, these both have 16-inch barrels. So theoretically, unless you're shooting a spray can, they should be of the same accuracy. However, you could say this one has more stuff on the barrel, which could do something to the harmonics, whereas this has only the one component, but you have a shorter sight radius. And then again, both do have standard complex scope rails, so sure. The shorter gas system doesn't really seem to affect reliability, but because of it and the combo device versus the 2 devices, the Paratrooper is noticeably lighter, especially front end. It has a very nice balance to it. This isn't a lot heavier, but it's noticeably heavier, so you're going to save several ounces. The only other thing is muzzle devices. This has a brake on and just regular detent. This, because of its nature, has to be screwed on and Loctited usually. So, yeah. Of course, if you want to SBR it, chop it down, rethread it, couldn't be easier. It's ready to go. So certainly if you're going to SBR, this would be the way to go. It also might be better for use with certain suppressors. Then again, I will warn you, with any of these Romanian guns, thread concentricity is probably not assured. In fact, I would almost guess that the threads are not concentric at all, be it done in the US by Century or done in Romania by Cugir. So if you do want to run one of these suppressed, check your threads. You might have to work on them or work with them. And one last shot of these together with their stocks folded up. For any of us that lived through the assault weapons ban, just this simple act of being able to fold the stock is great. I know that's silly, but there you go. This wood is current wood, either found on paratroopers or that you usually find in the PM90 kits you can buy. And this wood's actually old palm swell wood that came on an SAR-1 I bought. Not my original SAR-1, but a second one I bought in 2003. But still Romanian wood. As my cousin pointed out, the controls and stuff are sharp because this is a Romanian gun. So be aware of that. But they do kind of have the burrs and stuff wear off with time. So worst case, you can always use a little sandpaper and touch them up. But typically with Romanian guns and a lot of other AKs built with the same standard, you just need to shoot them. That works out great. But yeah, we shot this all day with, I think, wolf and bear ammo, using different mags, several different shooters. No surprise, not a failure, not a jam one. And luckily, it seems like, at least with this example, Sentry isn't having any mag well conversion issues or gas piston issues at the moment. So the only thing, yeah, the wiggly wobbly stock, which is more cosmetic than anything else. So what do you think? Do you own a RH-10 or M10 Paratrooper or a Draco pistol? Short guns are just kind of cool.
Alrighty, folks. Hope you enjoyed this video, and our guest stars. Probably see more of them in the coming months. I think it's good to have other opinions than mine. You know, I'm into the history and also the mechanics, but when it comes to shooting, I can tell you if something's reliable and how it feels. I'm not so good about telling you about accuracy. On the other hand, I'm not sure he is either with that can shooting, or rather all around it. But no, it's a WASR, and that's not a bad thing. And price point is acceptable. Right now, these are under 1,000. That's kind of where you're at with AKs today. It still is probably one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, import AK on the market. But then again, the Zastava Z-Pap isn't too far behind, and if you bump it up a bit, you get to the WBP, Fox, and Jack. But we've talked about those ad nauseum. Now, since this is a newly brought over version of this gun, figured we would talk about it today. Why not, as we get into the fall? So we'd love to hear what you think. As always, post them in the comments, and as always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to our Patreon page. This is Misha and friends, and we'll catch you very soon next time.
Post-credit confession. I kind of lied to you. Those were not actually the first shots from the WASR-10 Paratrooper. In fact, I had to re-edit the video because the first shots, well, my cousin somehow managed to do this.
First rounds out of the WASR Paratrooper.
Which of us is blind again? I don't know how, but he somehow managed to hold the GoPro backwards. Hey, you can hear the gun firing successfully and see his facial expression, I suppose. His wife insisted we keep that in the video, so I decided to stick it here at the end as a blooper. It's just those fun things that tend to happen. Of course, when I was editing the video for the first time, I didn't catch that because I heard bang, bang, bang. Couldn't see what was on the screen. Luckily, I happened to show him the video before making it go live, and so I quickly swapped some clips around, and hey, it's a funny story. So, little post-credit behind the scenes there for you. Now, for real this time, this is Misha, and we'll catch you very soon next time.